This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Oh, yeah, we are back with Eric Copeland today. And yeah, speaking of success, it's one thing he believes in. He's helping people, athletes, and so many more with his consulting and coaching as the CEO of EMC Consulting and Coaching from Atlanta, Georgia. Joining us today is Eric. And of course, we're going to get to meet his guest in just a sec, too. Eric, tell us, what type of day are we having?
This is the best day of my life.
I love it. And that's all he says always. And I love it. And that's a positive attitude. Eric, welcome back. Please say hello and introduce your guest as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. And on the phone I guess on the line today, I have Ed Rohn, who was on our program a few weeks ago. And I brought her back on as a continuation on our discussion that we had last week in regards to conflict. Because I know with him being in coaching and dealing with youth sports, I think he kind of deals with some conflict maybe from time to time. So definitely want to go down that path with Ed.
Go ahead. Hi, Ed. Say hello. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those that don't know.
How you guys doing today? I'm Ed Rohn. I too am a coach. I'm a coach, holistically speaking. I coach executives. I coach coaching whenever possible.
All right. So how did you want to start off today, Eric? I know I'm sorry, but I
Sure.
didn't get any specific notes about what you wanted to discuss and how you wanted to enlighten our guests. So I'm going to rely on you to kind of pull us together. Go for it.
Sure. So, last week we were talking about conflicts and, how, I dealt with conflicts and, how should people handle conflicts. But I want to bring Ed on because the fact that, with him dealing with youth and dealing with parents and dealing with coaches, he may have a different and a slight unique way of looking at dealing with conflict. So I guess my question for you, Ed, is how do you what is the typical conflict that you deal with in youth sports?
Well,
Yeah.
I think that conflict, the things that drive conflict usually are fundamentally the same. People have opposing views, and in the youth sports environment, people have opposing views for different reasons. Coaches may have different views on how to go about the business of coaching, or what scheme to run, how to run practices, what techniques to employ. Parents may have conflicts with coaches based on how their kid is being treated, or based on playing, actual personality discrepancies, or the way that they're being treated in terms as a player, in terms of playing time or being trained. And the fact that it's a highly emotionally charged environment, and the fact that we're dealing with a largely volunteer population in terms of the coaches. It presents some challenges, and you have to approach it, I think, with a softer touch than you may have to if you had a true professional environment where there was a human resources bureaucracy to back you up and help you work through these processes. And also, more resources to help train and guide people down the path of understanding towards being effective practitioners of conflict resolution.
Got you. And I guess in that, you didn't necessarily mention the athletes themselves. I guess how do you deal with conflicts within the athletes? Because I know sometimes you may have athletes who competing for playing time, and I guess how do you or your coaches deal with that?
Well, it's difficult to sort out in the
Yeah.
sense that when you talk about athletics, we're all in the business of conflict. That's what we're doing when we compete, and oftentimes our strengths are the fact that we have a high competitive drive.
Yeah.
Uh, it's easier when you're talking about youth athletes because you can be a little bit more fundamental in terms of human nature in allowing them to resolve their conflicts.
Yeah.
Though you got two players that play in the same position, they can openly compete. They can in football they can physically compete, and so the tools that exist to a coach to monitor and to allow for them to have a productive outlet and learn conflict resolution are a little bit different than it is for adults. The challenge is teaching the youth to take that training and apply it to the adult world where you're not allowed to physically, engage in combat to solve your conflicts.
So with
But
that, oh, go ahead, go ahead,
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. That's your question.
No, I was gonna follow up with because you funny you mentioned about teaching the kids not to engage in combat as they get older, but I kind of think back to my days of dealing with my daughter being in athletics and watching parents.
I was just, that's what I was going to mention. I had an experience the other day, but so go ahead, go ahead.
So how do you, I guess, resolve that conflict when you have parents that want to necessarily have conflict with the coach with, hey, my child's not getting playing time or not getting enough playing time, and I paid all this money for my child to play, and I want my child to play, and and get to the point where the parents are almost want to get to fisticuffs with the coach. So I guess how do you deal with those type conflicts?
Well, as a member of the organization and in a leadership position, it's my job to train the staff, volunteer, and coaches in conflict resolution and provide them with the framework with which to use to engage in those to handle and mitigate those conflicts with the parents. And so, as I mentioned before, I'm a PIES methodology practitioner. PIES meaning physical, emotional, intellectual. Excuse me, physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual discipline. Uh, and so, first, you want to establish behavioral standards so that everybody understands what we expect in terms of how to physically engage with the parent in terms of being in the same space, and to try to make sure that they monitor their body language so they're not taking aggressive stances. They're standing with their palms toward them, or they're not crossing their arms. They're conscious of how they're presenting themselves without using their words, so they can start to de-escalate the emotional aspect of what's going on. And then, we want to take an intellectual approach. We want to make sure that we're separating the individual, the issue from the individual. Um, the issues that parents have with coaches are probably not unique. They're probably issues that we have engaged with or encountered before, and so we have to rely upon understanding that some of these issues occur and they're part of the environment, and keep our minds wrapped around the problems that we're facing in the midst of this conflict. And then we want to make sure that we have emotional discipline, and that's the most difficult part, is making sure that you don't get triggered because um, us as coaches and as staff and volunteers, we have to conduct ourselves at a of making sure that the youth get a positive experience. And so it's an imperative for us to understand when we're being triggered, and make sure that we take the proper space between us and the parent to make sure that we don't get into an emotional level of combat with them, and we continue to make it about that issue and about the youth.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then you want to make sure that that we stay spiritually grounded in terms of the mission. And that kind of
Absolutely.
piggybacks to my last statement. We want to make sure that we remember this is about the youth, and it's about that child, not about this conflict that we're having with this parent.
And with that being said, I know probably some of the source of conflict will be, especially with the parents, are like trying to live vicariously through their child. And I guess that can be a conflict too, because that parent may thought they were the best athlete or wanted to be the best athlete and try to instill that same, I guess, level of passion through their kid. So I guess I don't know if you have dealt with those type conflicts where the parents living vicariously through their kid.
Well, we definitely, and I think the challenge is to make sure that we recognize that particular dynamic exists, and as we engage in that parent, we play to that dynamic to try to make it be proactive about that dynamic and try to make it a positive experience. And so, if you understand that, then, it's probably good, like I said, to identify what the issue is, or identify what that disagreement is, listen. And through listening, you understand, that where they're coming from. And then you want to see where their underlying interests are. So now you understand that there's an underlying interest of that vicarious living through their child. And so from that, you want to look at, how to develop a mission focused solution. And you do that by entertaining that idea. You have to put it out on the table and be clear about it once you recognize that, and be be artful and craftful about how you address the issue. But if you understand that, then you communicate on that level, and from there you build out and you commit to some type of solution moving forward in terms of how they're viewing the program and how what experience they want for their child. And if you have to use that dynamic of them living through their child, then you want to use that perspective to describe the solution, and allow that solution to be something that they're comfortable with and that they buy into.
Yeah. I've seen one video where I guess they had some mothers, I guess, who were kind of rowdy at a football practice. So I think when the coach did was had them do some type of Oklahoma drill where you had the kid try to tackle, had the mom come into practice and they gave her the football and let her try to run the ball, and the kid had to tackle the mom. So it gave everybody a different perspective, a unique perspective on about football. I don't know if that's something you ever parent.
There you go.
You know,
You broke up. Go ahead.
honestly, my first instinct is not to do that. Just because of when it comes to the football field, I'm a bit of a knuckle dragger, so I don't like to bring people out on the field that I don't think should be there. However, I understand the methodology and the tactic behind it, and it does serve a purpose. It does serve for people that may not understand the game or played the game to have an experience. It does serve to get buy-in through participation, so that that's the physical part of the PIES methodology,
Right.
bringing them physically on the field and letting them enjoy the experience. It also, it's fun for the kids. It's fun for them because we all have dynamics that are unstated between us and our parents. And the older you get, the more you feel or experience the weight of having parents, because they're people, and they have dominion over us. So there's a part of us that wants an opportunity to laugh at the king, if you will. And so I think it's good for the kids, and it's definitely a fun family building, team building exercise.
Yeah.
Can I just interject? I know you guys have been on a roll, but hold on about that. I wanted to talk before, but I feel bad. So about, the parents and the coaching stuff, right? So my son, I have a 9 and 11-year-old. My 11-year-old on like all the sports and football last season, and we just started lacrosse again. And he's new to this lacrosse team. He hasn't been on lacrosse in 2 years, right? He used to be, but he just finished basketball. And there was like a kid. This was last week's practice, who was not sharing. When the coach kept yelling at him in a way, I guess I don't know if you want to call it yelling, disciplining him to pass the ball. Again, I don't even know lacrosse well, whatever. And he wasn't doing it, so the coach got a little upset. Then the parent on the sideline got upset, talking to the parents. Why? Who do you think he is, talking to my son like that? And then the other guy's like, oh, he was just giving him instruction to share the ball, to do whatever. And the dad got so pissed and nasty, he pulled his son aside and he said something nasty about the coach to the son, like as if don't listen to him and blah blah blah. And I'm like, what is going on? I feel like a lot of our parents out on the field maybe shouldn't even be there, because what they're doing, they're poisoning our children. They should be on the coach's side. Talk to the coach privately later if you thought it was a little too harsh or whatever. But now the poor kid is now torn between, am I doing right what my dad wants to do, what my coach wants to do? Why is there so much conflict, right? It's just, it's sad. It's a shame that some adults can't handle this, and it just ruins it for the kids. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. Go ahead.
So we want to talk to that situation.
I wholeheartedly agree with the example that you gave, Jill. And oftentimes, parents ruin the experience for the child because they have their own interests that they're putting forward. the whole process of becoming a high performer, whether you're an athlete or not, is grounded in the idea of subjecting or submitting your ego to a process. And anytime you put your ego above the process, whether it be you or vicariously with your child, you're you're. I would gamble that that father was arguing and telling his kid not to listen to the coach because he thought that his child may be talented enough to carry the offensive load, and he wanted him to show his skill and build his skill. Well, part of being a good player is playing within the without the ball, is getting teammates involved so that once you spread the ball around and you create an environment where the problem that the opposite team needs to solve is more complex because there's more moving parts, then you ultimately open it up for that star player to succeed or take over the game at the crucial moment. And um, when you talk about that conflict resolution, if I'm having a conversation with that dad, and I think that dad would do good to have a third party that is not part of his echo chamber to talk about this situation with if he wanted to grow, is to understand that the overall structure of a team and fundamentally the overall concept of submitting yourself to a structure so that you have freedom. And I think we talked about that in our last conversation.
Yeah. And I know what I've also seen too, in my experience was, a lot of times coaches don't have parents at practice. I mean, saying that you can drop your kid off, but I don't want the parents there, just to prevent that situation of parents interjecting themselves into practice.
It's difficult. Most organizations that I've been around actually ask the parents to be there just because they want to hedge off any liability of misbehavior, between parents and adults and kids and adults as well. But it's definitely something that needs to be evaluated because, from our generation, we were latchkey kids. So when I first got back into the youth sports environment, it was very foreign to me to have all these parents sitting there watching. And my first instinct was that they were in the way. Come to the games and raise your ruckus there. That's kind of what it's there for. But it's a little bit like having the parents in the classroom while you're trying to teach a kid math or science, and they become a distraction. Unfortunately, the society doesn't view sports involvement or extracurricular as a part of the classroom experience or an extension of the classroom, and so they don't necessarily have the proper respect for the theater of education. And I think it lends itself to people more so living themselves vicariously and looking for more of a glory experience than they're looking for an educational experience for their child.
Gotcha. Oh, Jill, you have another
Nope,
question?
I'm just listening. Go ahead.
No, I mean, so I guess the last one that I kind of thought about was, coaches and coaches. I always think about, that situation with Buddy Ryan and with the Philadelphia Eagles. He well, was it with Philadelphia, Chicago at the time, where he threw a punch at? It was
Yeah.
yeah, it was Philadelphia. No, it was Chicago where he threw a punch at Mike Ditka. So
Yeah,
I
I think
guess, yeah, I don't know. Have you had that situation where you have coaches get into it physically or verbally with each other?
well, yeah. I mean, we're talking about, once again, we're talking about people that play chess with living pieces. So anybody that does that is a general, if you will, of any type of group, going to be passionate about what they do. Um, in terms of conflict resolution, the environment needs to be one that allows for the type of conflict resolution for the type of egos and energy that you have, the competitive energy. So maybe we don't come to blows, but um, the methodology through which the culture supports conflict resolution needs to be one that is ever present. In other words, it needs to be baked into how you do business, that you criticize each other,
Hmm.
and we make correction. That's at the core of coaching. And I think it's very important that people keep that in mind because when you talk about a good team, they're going to look at game film. They're going to evaluate their performance. They're going to look at their statistics. They're going to talk about what they did good and what they did bad, and then they're going to go to fix it. Coaches aren't immune to that. Coaches, matter of fact, should be more sensitive to it and more proactive in the process. And maybe that leads to some type of conflict, but it won't be the type of conflict that should spiral out of control because it's built into the process.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. It was just pretty entertaining. Yeah. I was watching it the other day where, Dick and Buddy Ryan got into it, over different a philosophy in terms of how the defense should have been coached. And so Buddy Ryan, of course, took to trying to lay hands on his boss, which was also interesting.
But and you think you have to be sensitive to the environment because that story they both were old men laughing about it. You don't hear about Buddy Ryan getting fired or disciplined because of that, and Mike Dicker didn't seem to hold any grudges because of it. Because what caused that conflict was what made them both great coaches.
Right.
They they both were dug in and they both had philosophies that they believed in deeply and they both were held people to high standards.
Right.
And you have people that have those positive characteristics, then there's going to be conflict. But we have to make sure that that conflict is based in positive characteristics, and we stay mission focused, which is step forward of
Yeah.
the conflict resolution process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got it. Well, also just curious though, Eric, for those of you out there, I know you're in Atlanta, and what about you? Where are you? And just tell everyone the story of how the two of you started working together, please.
Sure. I don't know, Ed, if you want to start or you want me to set you up
No,
or
go ahead, man. I'm in your house.
yeah, so Ed and I have been working together for quite a while, from vending machines to coaching and through the University of Buffalo where we, received our training. And Ed, he's a coach, entrepreneur based in Southern California. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Ed, like your website or anything.
Oh yeah, well you guys can go. I'm still, as I said before, I was rebranding. I want to continue to add resources and different things that I want to share with folks that may be interested in what I have to say. My website address is Xerxed Unlimited. That's XERXED Unlimited.com. And if anybody wants to reach me, they can reach me at ed@xerxedunlimited.com.
And for me, I'm like I said, based in Atlanta, Georgia, but I can work with anybody, anywhere, and I can be reached via my website at emcconsultingcoaching.net, and that's emccoachingconsulting.net, or you can email me at emcconsultingandcoaching@gmail.com. That's emcconsultingandcoaching@gmail.com.
Are we really out of time? How does it go so fast? Yeah, it says here 28. Oh my God, 28 and a half minutes. How does that happen? All right, come on. We still got a minute. Give me something powerful to instill in us. Someone out there listening today, to give them that pep talk, to feel good, to do good, to know they can. What would you both as coaches say? Give us
Okay.
something to love, to bring home, to take home, I should say. Who wants to
All
go
right.
first?
I'll give you this. Weak leaders and managers protect their reputation, where strong leaders protect their team. So obviously, you probably want to be a strong leader because you want to protect your team and not your reputation.
And I'll leave you guys with four cultural practices that reinforce proactive conflict resolution. Est- Establish respectful combat norms, reward constructive dissent, address issues early, and leadership models the behavior.
All right, thank you. And I'm just going to say, smile, be nice to someone. And like I believe in karma, do a good deed for someone today. Hold that door. That aggressive driver, slow down. Just you can wave to them. Just let it be. Oh, thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you all. And you got some great smiles and energy. And thank you for what you bringing to the table. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
All right.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Talk to
Enjoy
you
your
guys
day.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals. This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.